At 65 years old, Prince Andrew has finally broken his silence with a confession no one expected. "Marriage was a lesson I learned once, and I'll never repeat it." His words, shared privately inside Royal Lodge and later leaked to the press, stunned the public. After decades of scandal, heartbreak, and exile from royal life, Andrew isn't seeking sympathy, just truth. For the first time, he admits why love, for him, became a wound that never healed. The confession that stunned Britain. It began quietly inside Royal Lodge, Windsor, in January 2025. Over dinner with two longtime friends, Prince Andrew, now 65 years old, finally spoke the words few expected. "Marriage was a lesson I learned once, and I'll never repeat it." He said it with a half-smile, but the tone was heavy. One of the guests later described him as a man sounding more relieved than bitter. The conversation, meant to stay private, was soon whispered to the press. Within 48 hours, tabloids across Britain ran the headline, "Prince Andrew, I'll never marry again." For a royal family already cautious about his image, it was a fresh storm. But this time, there was no scandal, only honesty. Insiders close to the Duke of York said he had grown philosophical since turning 65, often reflecting on his life and the mistakes that reshaped it. "He knows he's not who he was in 1986, said one aide. In tone and truth, this confession was unlike his past public comments. Gone was the defensiveness that marked his disastrous 2019 BBC interview. Gone was the attempt to justify. Instead, he spoke as a man who had finally accepted the consequences of his choices. Friends described him as weary, but calmer. "He's not seeking sympathy," one noted. "He's acknowledging that some wounds don't heal. They just settle." The statement spread faster than expected, reigniting memories of his fall from grace and the love story that once captivated Britain. After years of silence, Andrew's confession didn't just reveal regret, it reopened the conversation about what happens when privilege collides with pride. For the royal once called the Queen's favorite son, it was a quiet reckoning, decades overdue. By February 2025, palace aides tried to downplay the confession as casual reflection, but the public had already seized the story. To understand why a prince had sworn off marriage forever, the world looked back to the man he once was, the fearless pilot, the charming heartthrob, the royal adored before scandal. To many, Prince Andrew's downfall began long before headlines. It began when the royal golden boy mistook popularity for invincibility. Once the royal family's golden son. In the early 1980s, Prince Andrew was the crown's most dazzling figure. At 22 years old, he was already a Royal Navy pilot and later a Falklands war hero in 1982, flying dangerous missions aboard the HMS Invincible. Newspapers called him Britain's action prince. His bravery and charisma made him a national darling, earning admiration not only from the public, but also from his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who proudly called him "my adventurous one." He thrived in the spotlight, always smiling, always confident. Tabloids showcased him dancing at nightclubs, skiing in Verbier, and dating glamorous women. He was the royal bachelor every woman wanted, one biographer later wrote. By 1984, his face graced magazine covers from London to New York. His sense of humor, quick wit, and youthful energy made him seem invincible, the perfect contrast to his more reserved older brother, Prince Charles. But behind the charm, cracks were already forming. Friends from his military days described a man who thrived on attention, sometimes reckless, often impulsive. "He didn't just like applause," said one officer, "he needed it." That appetite for adoration would later feed his biggest mistakes. The discipline of the Navy anchored him for a time. But royal life after uniform offered too much temptation and too little restraint. By the time he turned 30, Andrew had everything: fame, wealth, and the Queen's favor. But like many royals before him, he lacked what he needed most: direction. "He didn't know what to do once the cheering stopped," said a palace insider. And when he finally sought stability, it came not through service, but through a woman, one who brought him laughter, chaos, and the illusion of freedom. In 1985, while attending a polo match at Windsor Great Park, Andrew's life took a turn that seemed straight from a romance film. There, he met Sarah Ferguson, the fiery redhead who matched his humor and energy like no one else. They laughed instantly, their chemistry undeniable. The press adored them. Within a year, their whirlwind love story would lead to a grand royal wedding, a moment of joy that Britain believed would heal the royal family's cracks. The fairy tale that turned to frost. On July 23, 1986, under the soaring arches of Westminster Abbey, the world watched as Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson exchanged vows. The spectacle was breathtaking. The horse-drawn carriage, the velvet uniforms, the glittering tiara. Over 500 million viewers tuned in globally to witness what many called the last great royal wedding of the century. The Queen smiled proudly. The crowds cheered. For a moment, it seemed love had conquered formality. Their early years were light-hearted and affectionate. "They were the fun royals," recalled one courtier from Buckingham Palace in 1987. Unlike the formality of Charles and Diana, Andrew and Sarah brought humor to royal life. Practical jokes, spontaneous dances, and laughter that echoed through royal corridors. The Queen reportedly adored their energy, calling Sarah a breath of fresh air. For Britain, they were the modern couple, young, relatable, and genuinely happy. But reality soon intruded. Andrew's naval duties took him away for long stretches, sometimes 6 months at a time. Letters replaced conversations, and distance bred loneliness. Sarah, left to navigate royal expectations alone, grew restless. The tabloids, once her allies, turned critical, mocking her weight and outfits. Behind palace walls, the warmth between them began to cool. "We spent more time apart than together," Sarah later admitted in a 1996 interview. By 1991, the marriage was strained beyond repair. Their laughter had turned to silence, and every tabloid headline magnified their troubles. Rumors of infidelity swirled, and the fairy tale once cherished by millions began to dissolve into public embarrassment. Yet even as cracks widened, they kept smiling for the cameras. Two people trapped in the image the world refused to let go of. In August 1992, the illusion shattered completely when scandalous photos of Sarah and American businessman John Bryan surfaced across every British front page. The images, playful, intimate, and shockingly candid, sent shockwaves through the monarchy. For Andrew, it was the final blow. The man once hailed as the People's Prince now faced humiliation beyond imagination. What followed wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of a royal downfall that would define the rest of his life. The scandal that changed everything. It was August 1992 when the photographs hit the morning papers. Sarah Ferguson, barefoot and laughing beside John Bryan, an American businessman, on holiday in the south of France. The image that broke the royal family was one of intimacy, not treason. Brian kissing Fergie's toes while she giggled under the sun. The Queen reportedly received the papers during breakfast at Balmoral Castle. Her reaction, according to aides, was horrified beyond words. Within hours, phones rang across Buckingham Palace. The Prime Minister's office was briefed. Editors faced furious calls from royal press secretaries. For Prince Andrew, serving with the Navy abroad, the humiliation was devastating. He felt blindsided, said one former aide. He was embarrassed as a husband and ashamed as a prince. The scandal marked a turning point, the moment his reputation began to shift from hero to headline. Behind the scenes, the couple's relationship collapsed. By March 1992, they had already quietly separated, though the palace hadn't confirmed it. The photos only accelerated what was inevitable. The Queen insisted on privacy, but tabloids were relentless. For the first time, the royal family looked fragile, human, messy, and wounded in public. Andrew withdrew from official events for nearly a year, while Fergie became the target of mockery and shame. Despite the chaos, their connection never fully vanished. They finalized their divorce in May 1996, yet continued co-parenting Princess Beatrice, born 1988, and Princess Eugenie, born 1990, with surprising unity. "We loved each other, but we were terrible at being married," Fergie later told an interviewer. For Andrew, the scandal was more than personal failure. It was the first crack in the royal armor that once made him untouchable. By 1997, Andrew had rebuilt a semblance of calm. Divorced, but still close to Fergie, he shifted his focus to family and public service. Yet, the damage was permanent. Trust, reputation, and privacy had all vanished. As the monarchy evolved, he remained adrift, defined by a scandal he couldn't outrun. Then came the 2000s, the new millennium of luxury travel, fast money, and elite connections. For Andrew, it would be the decade that turned mistakes into ruin. The Bachelor Prince returns. In the late 1990s, Andrew re-emerged as Britain's most eligible bachelor. He hosted charity dinners, attended polo matches, and mingled with business elites. Tabloids dubbed him the Bachelor Duke, admiring his charm while speculating about his romantic prospects. By 2001, he was photographed with socialites and actresses, from Koo Stark to Caroline Stanbury, though none of the relationships lasted. He was always chasing comfort, not companionship, one friend remarked. His freedom became both shield and trap. Andrew's lifestyle drew attention and criticism. Lavish ski trips to Verbier, private jet flights, and expensive gifts fueled stories of indulgence. His trade ambassador role, given in 2001, provided access to billionaires and power circles. Yet palace insiders whispered that his taste for luxury was spiraling. By 2007, his expenses were questioned in Parliament. The man once seen as a war hero was now painted as the royal who lived beyond restraint. Still, Andrew remained close to Sarah Ferguson. They shared Royal Lodge, a sprawling Windsor estate where they raised their daughters. "We're the happiest divorced couple in the world," Fergie joked in 2010. The line became their public shield, a blend of humor and truth. Despite living under the same roof, Andrew avoided remarriage. "He's loyal to what he lost," one insider said, "but he's terrified of repeating it." By 2015, his social circle had shifted from aristocrats to entrepreneurs, many controversial, some powerful. Private jets replaced official engagements. Friendships replaced responsibilities. For a time, Andrew convinced himself he could stay relevant through wealth and connections. What he didn't realize was that this world would soon entangle him in the most catastrophic scandal of his life, one that no title, mother, or memory could save him from. By the late 2000s, whispers about Andrew's business links and questionable friendships grew louder. Yet he dismissed them, believing the worst was behind him. "I've weathered storms before," he told a friend in 2018. But the storm waiting in 2019 was unlike any other. It began with one name: Jeffrey Epstein. What followed would strip Andrew of everything he once held sacred: reputation, rank, and the final pieces of public trust: the Epstein connection. The friendship between Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein began around 1999, introduced through Ghislaine Maxwell. At first, it seemed harmless, a prince mingling with wealthy elites. But by 2008, when Epstein was convicted for sex offenses, Andrew's continued association raised alarm. Photos of the two walking in Central Park in 2010 became defining images of arrogance and denial. The royal family was blindsided, and the public outrage was immediate. By 2019, the scandal reached its breaking point. A woman named Virginia Giuffre accused Epstein of trafficking and claimed she had been coerced into encounters with Andrew. Though he denied the allegations, public fury erupted. The now infamous BBC Newsnight interview, broadcast on November 16, 2019, was meant to clear his name. Instead, it became a masterclass in disaster. "I don't sweat," he insisted awkwardly, a line that would haunt him forever. Within days, Buckingham Palace moved swiftly. On November 20, 2019, Andrew announced he was stepping back from public duties. The Queen, heartbroken but resolute, stripped him of his military titles and royal patronages by January 2022. His portrait was quietly removed from palace corridors. The man once celebrated as Action Andy had become the symbol of royal disgrace. "It was like watching a light go out," said one palace insider. The fallout was total. Friends vanished, invitations stopped, and Andrew retreated entirely to Royal Lodge, Windsor. The same walls that once echoed with laughter now felt like confinement. "He's a ghost prince," one aide said. "He walks the grounds like someone half-living." The scandal had done what no war, no divorce, no criticism could. It erased the public figure he once was. From that day, the Duke of York ceased to exist in everything but name. By 2020, Andrew's silence became his shield. The man who once sought headlines now avoided them entirely. He withdrew from the world, a royal in exile, existing quietly behind the wrought-iron gates of Windsor. Yet even in isolation, the past never left him. It lingered in his reflection, his regrets, and his rare moments of honesty. And when he finally spoke again in 2025, his confession revealed what scandal never could: the cost of losing trust and love. Marriage demands trust. When the 2025 interview leaked, one quote stood out above all others. "Marriage demands trust," Andrew said softly. "And I've lost mine." He wasn't bitter, just certain. His words cut through decades of scandal and speculation. "I've learned that companionship is different from marriage," he continued. "One you can walk away from. The other leaves a mark you never lose." It was the first time he'd spoken publicly about love since his divorce in 1996. Those close to him said he has grown deeply private, a man who lives in his memories but avoids his emotions. "He's not heartless," one aide explained in March 2025. he's afraid. The betrayals of trust, by friends, the press, and even his own decisions, have hardened him. Andrew reportedly told a confidant that he fears being used or exposed again. Love, once his freedom, has become his fear. Even his daughters, Princess Beatrice, born 1988, and Princess Eugenie, born 1990, understand his guarded nature. They visit often, bringing their children to lift his spirits, yet even family moments carry unspoken tension. He feels unworthy of affection, Eugenie once told a friend, but we remind him he's still Dad. Behind the walls of Royal Lodge, Andrew exists in routine. Early walks, quiet meals, and evenings spent reading the same military memoirs he loved as a young officer. To the world, he's a man in exile. To himself, he's a man learning to live with consequences. "I'm not looking for forgiveness," he reportedly said in February 2025. "Just peace." For a prince who once thrived on applause, silence has become both punishment and comfort. His refusal to remarry isn't defiance. It's surrender to the truth that love demands a kind of trust he no longer believes in. While the world debated his confession, one name kept resurfacing: Sarah Ferguson. The woman he married in 1986, divorced in 1996, and yet somehow never truly left his life. Their bond, often mocked and misunderstood, remains one of the strangest in royal history. As scandal and years stripped Andrew of allies, Fergie stayed. She laughed with him when no one else would. She defended him when others walked away. And perhaps that's why she's still there now. His complicated bond with Fergie. Even after nearly 30 years apart, Andrew and Sarah Fergie Ferguson remain inseparable. They still live under the same roof at Royal Lodge, a sprawling 30-room estate nestled in Windsor's Green Heart. "We're the happiest divorced couple in the world," Fergie famously said in 2011, and to this day, she keeps that promise. They celebrate birthdays, attend family milestones, and even share breakfast most mornings. For outsiders, it's baffling. For them, it's peace. Insiders say their connection runs deeper than romance. It's shared survival. Both were humiliated publicly, both forgiven privately. "We went through fire," Fergie told Good Morning Britain in 2023, "and came out friends." When Andrew's scandal stripped him of royal duties in 2019, Fergie was the only one who stood by him. She shielded him from the press, managed his household, and kept his spirit from collapsing. Their daughters adore the arrangement. "They're our constants," said Princess Beatrice, speaking at an event in 2024. "Mom and Dad might not be married, but they're together in every way that matters." Fergie's laughter brings life to Royal Lodge, while Andrew's quiet routines bring stability. He calls her Sarah, never Fergie, and she still calls him Andrew Darling, a habit from 1986 that never died. Yet both know romance is impossible. "We're family," Andrew reportedly said in January 2025, "not husband and wife." Their story, full of chaos and loyalty, has evolved into something rare. Love without the need for labels. For Andrew, Fergie's presence is his final comfort. The only person who saw him at his lowest and chose to stay. And perhaps, in her laughter, he finds the only forgiveness he'll ever get. As the years drift on, Andrew's world has grown smaller, not by force, but by choice. Royal Lodge, once filled with staff and visitors, is now a sanctuary for silence. His circle has shrunk to family and a handful of trusted aides. While the royal calendar moves on without him, Andrew remains frozen in his own past. It's in this quiet exile that he's found a strange rhythm, a life reduced, but one he can finally control. Isolation and reflection at Royal Lodge. Royal Lodge, once alive with the bustle of receptions and laughter, now stands hushed. The grand estate, built in 1830, has become a world within a world, and Prince Andrew's private prison. He rarely leaves the grounds, save for walks through Windsor Great Park around 7 a.m., rain or shine. Locals who see him describe a man aging faster than his years. At 65, his stride remains steady, but his spirit carries the weight of decades. Inside, the rooms reflect a man living in reflection. Framed photographs of Queen Elizabeth II, Beatrice, and Eugenie line the mantel. Books on naval history, the Falklands War, 1982, and leadership are stacked in neat rows. Staff say he spends hours rereading letters from his Navy days, a time when he still believed in honor and purpose. He replays his life like a film, said one visitor in 2024, scene by scene. Visitors are few. Fergie drops in daily with tea and updates from the girls, sometimes bringing grandchildren. The conversations are gentle, ordinary, the weather, charity events, or family news. Andrew listens, smiles faintly, but rarely engages beyond the surface. He's there, one friend said, but part of him never came back after 2019. His world has shrunk to 4 walls and fading memories. Despite everything, he keeps his mother's photograph beside his bed. She believed in duty above all, he once told a former aide in 2023, and I failed that. It's a reminder, not of judgment, but of what he lost. In his silence, Andrew is both punished and protected, forgotten by the world, but safe from it. For a man once addicted to attention, anonymity has become his redemption. As winter settles over Windsor in late 2025, the press occasionally spots him, walking alone, hat low, hands clasped behind his back. No guards, no fanfare, just a man in reflection. To some, he's a cautionary tale. To others, a broken figure clinging to routine. But within those long walks lies something more profound, acceptance. And from that quiet place, his final message emerges, not of scandal or sorrow, but of the rare peace that comes after ruin. A life of regret. At 65 years old, Prince Andrew's story reads like a royal tragedy. Privilege gained, trust lost, lessons learned too late. I've had my chance at marriage, he told a confidant in December 2024, and it taught me what love costs a royal. For him, the cost was everything: reputation, career, and belonging. But there's no bitterness in his voice now, only resignation. The man once called arrogant now speaks softly, as though aware his words are borrowed time. Those who know him best say he has changed, quieter, humbler, focused on family. His daughters remain his lifeline. Princess Eugenie often visits with her young son August, born 2021, filling the halls with laughter. "Dad's happiest as Grandpa," she said in a 2024 podcast. It's those simple moments that remind him of what remains after scandal: unconditional love. He no longer craves the public stage. His world is small but genuine. Fergie, too, remains part of that peace. She continues her work in writing and charity, but her loyalty to Andrew endures. He's not the man people think he is, she told reporters in 2023. He's simply trying to make amends in his own way. They may never remarry, but they've rebuilt something stronger. Trust in the ashes of ruin. For Andrew, there will be no comeback, no return to royal duties. But perhaps, in this quiet twilight of his life, he's finally found what eluded him for decades: contentment. His story stands as a warning to future royals. Crowns may grant power, but never immunity. In the end, even princes learn that love, once broken, cannot be commanded, only remembered. Now living quietly at Royal Lodge, Windsor, Prince Andrew spends his days reflecting, walking the same gardens he once shared with Sarah Ferguson. His confession isn't defiance, it's closure. He's accepted that marriage, titles, and fame no longer define him. "I've had my chance," he said softly. "It taught me what love costs a royal." Once the Queen's favorite son, Andrew now stands as proof that regret can outlive scandal, but peace can still be found.